What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Set Bet Spike here on Game Plus Network, also live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney and the Eric Young here hanging out with you on this Tuesday. Hopefully everybody's having a fantastic day. We've done a lot of division previews. We've done actually every division preview. We previewed every team from a fantasy football, a betting standpoint. We've done some live drafts on this show, some mock drafts, single quarterback, two quarterback. We've recapped high stakes drafts, expert drafts that you and I have been a part of, courtesy of Jake Seeley in New York. Today, we want to hammer home our favorite sleepers, busts, and just our guys, players that we're trying to draft in most leagues. We're happy to get them, players that we have a ton of exposure to. So really, we're going to come at you with 10 sleepers, 10 busts, and 10 must-have players as a team here. EY, happy Tuesday, dude. One more week of NFL preseason, and then it is officially here, the NFL season. I know you can feel it. It's not too early to draft now, sir.
No, not too early to draft now for sure. I mean, the longer you wait, I think the better, because, guys are still going to get hurt. It's just inevitable. The closer you can get to the season. I understand. Look, I'm a commissioner in a league, in a couple, co-commissioner in a couple leagues. It's impossible to organize a group of people like that, even if it's just remote, right? Or online. I used to say, if you're not doing a live draft in person, you're a loser and you're missing the whole point of fantasy football. And now I do one of them and have to fly to New York to do the flex draft, to do one live in person. The rest of them are all done online because it's impossible to organize that many people. Today's shows, sleepers, bust, must-haves, or my guys, whatever you want to call it. The reality is we need to retire the word sleeper, right? Like, if you're watching this show, you're a lunatic and you know every player. Look at this.
Oh, baby.
Is the FTN Almanac. There are no secrets, guys. Wow. There are no secrets. I've been parsing through this the last couple of weeks. It's
how awesome
unbelievable.
It's so good.
Dude, I wish I could read faster. I wish I wasn't half brain dead in a caveman. It just takes time. And but the reality is everything you need to know about basically every player that's going to play is in this book. And this is one of 600 of these that are available. I know Warren Sharp does an amazing one, on and on and on. So today, under the skies of this, sleeper is going to be guys, to me, that are going to outperform their ADP. The fantasy world's got to come up with a term for that. Maybe when you see sleeper, think of it as like not guys that are going to go undrafted or that your league mates don't know about. Undervalued.
I think you said it perfectly. It's the definition, in my opinion. It's guys that are going to outperform their ADP. It's players, and some of the players that we are going to come up with are not like deep sleepers. We can have a conversation about that at the end when we wrap up with sleepers. Let's save sleepers for the end. We'll start with kind of our guys. We'll get into busts. We'll do sleepers, but I think that's perfect. It's a clicky term. It's for hits on Twitter, online, Google searching. I get it. If you have sleepers in your term or in your title and your articles, they're going to pop, and people are doing that all the time. But it's players that are going to outperform their average draft position. That could be anybody. That could be, I don't know. It could be a top 10. It could be Garrett Wilson. It could be Garrett Wilson roughly going as wide receiver 10 in the middle of the second round. You could view him as wide receiver 1 in your opinion. You feel like he's having that season. He's going to be a sleeper. Now, we're not going to get too crazy like that, but we are going to identify players that we feel are going a little bit later than they should and players that we like. So I thought it was perfect. Man, I don't have the hard copy of Aaron Schatz's 2023 FTN Almanac. I think I have to get it. I have the digital copy. It's over 450 pages deep. It is phenomenal. I had Aaron on Mean Streets last week. If you want to go back and watch that episode, he talked about a bunch of goodness. He is the creator of Fantasy Outsiders, Football Outsiders. He is the creator of DVOA metrics. There's a lot of metric talk in there. There's over 500 player profiles in there. There's team previews, division previews, sleepers, busts, rookie rankings, prospects. There's all kinds of goodness in there. It does makes you feel just so much smarter about the game of football every time I pick it up and read a couple pages of it. It is fantastic. Good for you to have that book. It is thick. Wow. It is awesome.
When it came, it actually surprised me. Like it was in like a box inside of a box, because that's what Amazon does.
Yeah.
And dude, I was like, there's got to be something else in there. It's so heavy. It's just a book. And then I pulled it. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get through it all before the season starts. But I still love reading this stuff, like things like that. It just makes you a sharper player, a better drafter, a better better.
I understand the game more too. Like even if you're not a betting, even if you're you're not into betting, you're not into fantasy. I mean, I'm sure you are. You're watching the show, but if you just like the game of football, you will learn a thing or two from it for sure. So it is available over at ftnfantasy.com. I didn't know you were going to come in hot like that. I love it. All right, let's get after it. See some people hanging out here. Do want to say what up to the crew as we normally do. Troy's in the house, fun in the Khalil Herbert breakout season. I can't get behind that for sure. I think he is certainly going to be the lead there. I like having a couple shares of Rashawn Johnson a little bit later on in my drafts as well. I think he could be something special towards the end of the season, potentially, as the young rookie inside that offense. Daily Handle with Jordan Allen in the house. Good morning, Means and EY and everybody. We got Kyle Woods with us. Let's go. Troy says he is going to the Giants-Jets game on Saturday. He's never been to a football game before. Awesome. They are playing each other this season as well, so it should be pretty fun for the rivalry in New York / Jersey. James in the house. Thanks for the content, Meaney. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us, buddy. Been so busy, just now able to dive in for the research. Awesome. We're here for you. Any questions you have, leave them there. You watching the replay on the show, leave them in the comment section. Always circling back on these videos as well. Abby Labar is going to join us on Thursday, and we're hoping that our producer George is going to join us as well, and we'll have a fun set bet spike fantasy football league. If you want to be a part of that league with us, join us on Thursday morning at 10:30 Eastern. We're going to set something up. We'll have you in there. Kyle Woods, 2 drafts on Saturday, one here in ATX, and drive to Houston right after for another one. Big day for you. Draft day marathon. I love that. I'm here for all that. McLaurin's toe is worrisome. Any thoughts on moving him down or Dotson up? We're actually going to talk about both of those guys. Spoiler alert, EY and I really love Jahan Dotson, and this was before last night's game that he had. He is a stud, and we'll talk him up in a little bit. I am concerned.
It's unfortunate, right? Because now everyone's going to know he's going to rocket up boards.
Yeah, he is. Got a lot of shares of him. You and I have drafted him, done some best ball. I got a ton of shares. He's probably my 3rd or 4th highest owned wide receiver over at Underdog Fantasy. Big fan of his game. And you're right. He is going to rise up draft boards now because of the game he had last night and because of the toe injury for Terry McLaurin. But X-rays were negative, so that was great. Welcome in. Go Sharks. We're almost there. We're almost there. NBA rigged, EY and Chris showtime Tuesday, gents. Let's go. I know Eric loves Justin Herbert. Is there a scenario Johnson is going to be wide receiver 1 in any circumstances? I think so. It's possible. I mean, injuries would have to happen. We don't root for them, of course, but Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are 2 guys that haven't been able to really stay healthy. And last year at times, Joshua Palmer, Canadian boy, was the one on the team when those other guys weren't healthy. Great player. I think Quentin Johnson will offer more as a 3 than Palmer did last year on the squad, assuming everybody is healthy. But yes, there is a scenario because Keenan Allen is over 30. Now the slot wide receiver is over 30. It's good that they're in the slot. You know, sometimes they can stay a little bit healthier and longer career, but let's be honest about Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. There have been some issues from an injury standpoint with both of those guys. So there is a scenario where Quentin could eventually be the number 1 on the squad, and Kellen Moore and things like that. So Kellen Moore is going to do some things to this offense. And I know you're excited about Justin Herbert as well. There's going to be a deep ball, more of a deep attack, I suppose. And I've heard Keenan Allen talk about that, and he plays in the slot, and he says even he's going down the field a little bit more. I've heard other players on the team talk about the offense looking a little bit different, taking deeper shots down the field. And why not? When you got an arm like Herbert, yeah, you can chuck it. Brazice in the house. Good morning.
I gotta get a Chargers hat. I'm decided.
You're gonna have to get a Chargers hat or a Chargers jersey or some sort of. We had a caller on the FTN Fantasy Show on Sirius XM radio on Saturday. You can listen every Saturday. Jake Seeley, myself, and Lauren Carpenter from 9 to 11 Eastern. And we had a caller. It was like my type of guy, like our type of guy. He was confused about which rookie to draft in Quentin Johnson and Jackson Smith-Njigba. So he went to the store, bought both jerseys, tried them on. It was like, which one looks better kind of deal. Like, which one am I feeling the vibes? And he thought he was leaning Quentin and he wanted our help. And I'm like, man, you are just well on your way. You are a true football psycho. You bought 2 rookie jerseys. You're going to rock them both. Pick either one. You'll be fine. But it was great. But Baker announced as quarterback. Okay. We'll see some Kyle Trask games this year for sure as well. But that doesn't surprise me. Baker does deserve that job, but they're going to have to see what they have in Trask. Let's start with our guys. Want to start with our guys? Let's start here. We'll save sleepers towards the end. Maybe we can dive in deeper into some deeper sleepers for the people as well. So I'll let you go first. We got 5 guys each. We'll kind of just rapid fire between our guys, and then we'll recap with a nice shiny board from our guy Fox. So we'll let you take it away. One of your guys, must-have drafts. Start it off, sir.
Deontay Johnson is a guy. I mean, you're hearing glowing reviews for Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. I don't think Kenny Pickett's going to reinvent the wheel, but I think he's a much better quarterback than he showed last year. Look, he was the number 2. Trubisky was the 1. He didn't play with the 1s through training camp. He didn't play with the 1s through the first part of the season. Then he's thrown into the fire, and he's a rookie. And this is just how it works, you know. And Tomlin is a guy where you have to earn his trust if you're going to, you know, play, and they're going to open up the playbook. So obviously it was tons of running, you know, short to intermediate rollouts, you know, easy throws, cutting the field in half, things like that for Kenny Pickett. And I think it's going to be different this year. You're also hearing glowing reviews for Pickens, that he's running more of a full route tree. He's not just running, you know, vertical and, you know, just running as fast as he can and putting his hand up. Deontay Johnson was a very good fantasy asset in PPR leagues last year. He just didn't score touchdowns. And what do we say, and what does everyone say about touchdowns? Planning on touchdowns is foolish because they're fleeting, right? The reality is this is going to regress to the mean. He's going to score touchdowns. There's no way he scores 0 touchdowns again, especially if he gets that kind of volume, and I think he will. I believe he's still the best wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think the offensive is going to be massively improved. So Deontay Johnson, where he's going right now, I think is a massive what do you call it? Like undervalue. I mean, he's going to outdo his ADP almost undoubtedly.
Well, there's one thing I think that we can guarantee, and I heard Justin, I would call him Justin Fields, Yates from ESPN. They did a ESPN fantasy football mock draft a couple weeks ago. I watched it all. And he said he guaranteed that Deontay Johnson would score a touchdown this season. He's too good not to have a touchdown. I mean, he's too good of a route runner, a separator. Yep. He struggled with drops over the course of his career, but he is a phenomenal route runner. I know Big Ben really locked him in over the past couple of years, and last year he was still getting a ton of targets, but there was some spotty play at the quarterback position. I personally like George Pickens a touch more. Pickens is really rising up draft boards. I'm going to reference NFFC high stakes leagues. I'm looking over at the last 2 weeks. These are drafts where people are putting their hard-earned bucks on the line, like $300 entries, $500 entries, $800 entries, $1,500 entries, even larger than that. Like Best Ball Underdog, it's great to look at those references. We have all the ADPs on our site, Sleeper, all those things. Every site is very different. Sleeper, Yahoo, ESPN, CBS. Players are going to be down draft boards. Drafts are really just picking up in those leagues. High-stakes leagues, people are drafting every single day. So I'm looking at the last 2 weeks, and I'll just reference ADP and where these guys are going as we progress here on the show. So Deontay Johnson, the gap is really close between the 2 Pittsburgh wide receivers, and I'm kind of surprised. But Deontay Johnson going as wide receiver 30, yes, and George Pickens going as wide receiver 32 over the last 2 weeks. Deontay Johnson has a min pick of 40, and George Pickens has a min pick of 48. The max for Pickens is 91, and the max for DJ is 81. I think they're both decent targets. I think that George Pickens is like, I really like him overall. You mentioned his route running and how they're going to open it up a little bit. He's already has like multiple highlight reel catches on his resume. Pickett, I think, will grow as a passer. It is a run first team. Jaylen Warren is starting to get into the news as a real nice runner. And I don't think he's going to overtake Najee, but it's a good 1-2 punch. I think both of those guys and Deontay and George Pickens are pretty solid options. If you can get them as your wide receiver 4, that's possible. If you're a heavy wide receiver, I think maybe Pickens is my wide receiver 3 or 4 from the flex league, but I like both of those guys. Kyle Woods has a slight lean to DJ in a full PPR league, and I think that makes a lot of sense. because it is a run-first team. And Pickens the targets came back a little bit when they made the switch at quarterback, but I think ultimately in a couple of years we're going to be looking at Pickens as like one of the best wide receivers in football. Okay, you started strong. I don't have to spend too much time on this guy, Nick Chubb. I like Nick Chubb. He's my guy. I'm taking him in the first round. I'm heavy alpha wide receiver. I love to attack wide receivers. I love the strategy of a hero RB, punt RB2. Which means I want one of my running backs to be my anchor, to be a top 5, top 10 guy if possible. And I think Nick Chubb just checks all those boxes for me. I think he's the best pure runner in the game, being arguably the best offensive line in football, one of the better ones anyways. And 5 years in the NFL, 4 years, 1,000 yards. The 1 year he didn't was his rookie campaign. He was a couple, like 6 yards maybe away from 1,000. He's never had fewer than 5 yards per carry. So we know what he can do on the ground. The biggest thing for Chubb is, nobody really wants him in a PPR setting, or they want to take him early because he doesn't catch any passes. Well, that's not true. Like, yes, over the past couple of years, he hasn't because of Kareem Hunt, but he can catch passes. Year 1, averaged just over 2 catches per game as a rookie. Year 2, at the halfway point, he was averaging, again, over 2 catches. He was on pace for 50 grabs. They brought in Kareem Hunt. And Kareem Hunt was at that time of his career, elite pass catcher and was an issue for Chubb. So now Kareem Hunt is gone. And that's like 125-ish carries, including 25 from the red zone and 40-ish targets. So all of that is gone. I like Jerome Ford as a late little dart throw sleeper type of guy, but he doesn't have really any work on his resume. And he's not going to come in and just immediately fill the Kareem Hunt role. So I think, at times looking back at Cleveland's offense, we've seen them in the red zone. We've seen Kareem Hunt in red zone packages near the 5 or the 10. This is not going to happen. It's going to be a whole lot of Chubb. I don't think he can build much on a career high 1,500 rushing yards he had last year and 302 carries. Like, I don't think he's going to just all of a sudden get 425 carries, but he is going to get a lot of the work in the red zone. And I think he's going to catch some passes this year. And Deshaun Watson in their last game in week 18, Chubb had 6 targets, 5 grabs, 40 some odd receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. So I know it's not breaking any news here. I see some people here. Yes, everyone's been following my work, Nick Chubb. If you can get him in the second round, drafted Nick Chubb with the second pick. Of the third round, somehow I drafted very earlier, and this is a status questionable pick him up. I mean, that's just an absolute steal, Troy. You're on your way. But I've been taking Chubb 7, 8, 9. You still get a good alpha wide receiver on the way back. Maybe it's Olave, Devontae Smith, Waddle T. Higgins, potentially Garrett Wilson falls or Devontae Adams. You can still have a pretty solid start with one of those guys. And he is my RB3 overall. And he's also, according to Vegas, the guy favored to lead the NFL in rushing yards. So Nick Chubb, and I know you like him quite a bit as well. Next guy for you.
Yeah, I'll just Chubb was on this list for me as well. So he's my third overall as well. He's my third overall pick overall. I think he's going to just crush it. So must-haves, Tyler Lockett, just where he's going. Look, this is under the thing of like where he's being drafted and who he is as a player. I get, Najigba's there and, we're worried about volume and this, that, and the other. I mean, the reality is Tyler Lockett is someone that Pete Carroll trusts. Tyler Lockett is somebody that Geno Smith trusts. And Tyler Lockett has been an important, if not the most important part of this offense for 5+ years. DK Metcalf making all the money and coming in and doing all these impressive things. He hasn't been statistically better than Tyler Lockett yet. So where you're getting him after DK and in some crazy drafts after Najigba, Lockett is a crazy screaming value. And again, will out punt the coverage and finish much higher than where he's being drafted. Love Tyler Lockett. And until he proves that he can't do it, I'm just going to keep drafting him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, every single year we do this, he seems to be the disrespected wide receiver, not only on Seattle, but in fantasy. He is right there between Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, right in the middle of those guys, currently going as wide receiver 31. And in back-to-back seasons, he has finished ahead of DK Metcalf in fantasy points per game. I think this offense will be a little bit more pass-happy than we've seen before in the past with Pete Carroll running the rock. Dave Canales was their offensive coordinator for the last 13 years. He's now in Tampa Bay. I think we'll see. I mean, Geno Smith showed us, man, let him throw a little bit more. He led the NFL in completion percentage. He had a really nice campaign, and he's got 3 solid weapons on the squad. Love the Lockett call there. Mark, I don't know if I would trade for Chubb in Dynasty. It's a little bit, obviously it's a different format here. Running backs have a short shelf life. I'm not totally sure I would be into grabbing Chubb. I wouldn't, because he probably has like 2 or 3 more.
If you think you're going to win,
happens.
Right? If you think you're going to win in the next year or 2, then do it, because the chances of winning in Dynasty leagues is slim. It's few and far between. It can sometimes take half a decade to build your team up. So if you think you're, a solid running back away, then I say do it, because I think this is the year for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I would do it too. I don't know what to give up. Maybe you can give up a pick. You probably have to part with a first. Maybe you have a bunch of wide receivers. Maybe you can part with one of those guys. And yeah, I would only do it if you felt like that was like the last missing piece for your squad. I'm into trading running backs. I mean, I traded Austin Eckler last year. I was trying to trade Alvin Kamara before the suspension. I'm into trading these running backs. I feel like I just want to get rid of them a year or 2 early before. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet. But if you can, mostly I'm on board with getting the young wide receivers or a quarterback as opposed to the running backs. I would trade any running back for a young wide receiver that I really like the prospect for. We'll get to some of these questions in a little bit, guys. We do want to get through some of these things here. Lockett, Rodney Dangerfield of fantasy, no respect.
Yep.
It's always wishful thinking to hope Chubb gets more passing volume. Had 36 catches back in 2019, but for some reason that was a career high. The reason is Kareem Hunt. That's the reason, right? He was on pace that season for 50 grabs. I was at one of those games. We caught 4 or 5 passes. They brought in Kareem Hunt, and that was it. They just don't have anybody now on that roster that's going to cut into the. I think we could see 40 catches, and we could see 40 catches from Nick Chubb. He may just flirt with 2,000 total yards, and I fully believe that. All right. I guess I'm up again. Christian Watson. I like Christian Watson a lot. I have him ranked as wide receiver 17, roughly. The rest of the crew over at FTN Fantasy, they don't like Christian Watson that much, and that's okay. He is going as wide receiver 23. I would rather have him than DeAndre Hopkins. He's in the same tier for me as DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Calvin Ridley. But I think for me, he's just a really good wide receiver. He's a really good wide receiver that we just saw glimpses of it last season in his rookie year. Remember, I think 4 minutes into his first NFL game, he dropped like what would have been an 80-yard touchdown to the house from Aaron Rodgers. And then he got hurt. And it was Romeo Doubs that was on the field quite a bit. But in the from week 10 to week 18, Christian Watson led the Packers in targets. He had 80% of the snaps played. In fantasy points per game, he was wide receiver 4 from week 10 to week 18. Only Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams had more fantasy points per game than him. Overall, he was wide receiver 7. And I get it. He scored a bunch of touchdowns in like a 4 or 5 game span. And I understand that there's a drop off at the quarterback position from Rodgers to Love. But I think Love is going to surprise some people. There was a game last year in Philly at the Link. The Eagles, according to Aaron Schatz and Football Outsiders, the Eagles had the best DVOA pass defense in football in Philly. Middle of the game, Love came in and just peppered Christian Watson. Watson had like a quick slant that he brought to the house in a 67-yard touchdown. He's a big body with kind of sneaky speed. He reminds me of Mike Evans. He may be very boom or bust. I think the Packers may lean on Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon a bit to kind of – because they have a young offense now all of a sudden. Love, I know he's not a rookie, but it's like he's a rookie. Watson's second year, Doubs second year, Jaden Reed, first-year rookie, and Musgrave is, a rookie tight end. They got Croft as a rookie tight end. Musgrave is running routes every time. Love is dropping back. It's going to be a very, I think, inexperienced but fun offense at times. And I just think Christian Watson is going to be Love's guy. I think he's going to pepper him. I think there's a bunch of different things that he can do in his route tree as well. So I'm aggressive in Christian Watson. It's okay. I mean, I want to get my guy. So I've been trying to get him as my wide receiver 3, and you can kind of do that if you did a Chubb, and then you went 3 straight wide receivers. It's possible at an ADP of 45 on average that you could potentially get him as your wide receiver 3. But hopefully I steer you guys in the right direction this year, because last year I was so big on Christian Watson, Eric, that all we did is win consolation brackets with him on the squad because we drafted him. We had to drop him. And when you picked him up, You mean he could have been a league winner for you, but me, I won consolation brackets. Okay, so you're up.
I'm going to go Calvin Ridley, and the drumbeat has been constant that he is dominating in training camp. He looks like Calvin Ridley, and this will affect a bust pick for me later on when we start talking bust. But Calvin Ridley, I think Trevor Lawrence takes another step. I think the running game is improved with a healthy ATN and the addition of Tank Bigsby. Christian Kirk showed last year that he is a very, very good receiver. I think a lot of people, me included, was wondering about how much he got paid to go over to Jacksonville, and we were all wrong, and Jacksonville was right. The coaching staff and the offensive coordinator are unbelievable. Trevor Lawrence is, in my opinion, has the ability to become a generational quarterback. We haven't seen it yet, but last year was a massive step from where he was. And that was literally just the coaching staff, right? I mean, it's very obvious that the coaching staff was holding him back. It was predictable and boring and not fit for the NFL. And now he has everything, including these unbelievable weapons and a number one on the outside. I think Calvin Ridley goes off this year.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. I was a little just hesitant a couple months ago because obviously he hadn't played in 2 years, and Kirk had that great season, and Zay Jones had a great season, and they brought back Evan Ingram. I'm like, well, who's the odd man out here? Trevor Lawrence is just going to spread this thing around, but early indications is that Kirk isn't really getting on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, which is an issue for sure. And Calvin Ridley, the last time we saw him in a full season, he was a beast, man. He was like third in end zone targets. He handled top coverage beautifully, right? We saw Julio leave, and that was my big question. It was like, well, when you got a guy like Julio Jones in your squad easily, like, this guy's just going to eat on the opposite side of him. He's never going to be doubled. It's all going to be Julio. And then he passed all those tests, the questions that I had. He passed with flying colors. I'm drinking the Ridley Kool-Aid. I love Trevor Lawrence. It was hard to leave him off my list of guys, but he is the quarterback that I have the most exposure to in fantasy football. Big fan of Doug Peterson, and we saw the leap forward from Trevor Lawrence in his second year with a capable head coach. Okay, Uncle Ted talks in the house. Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson over Calvin Ridley. Interesting. I like both of those targets, but I think there's clearly a higher ceiling here for Calvin Ridley and a clearer path for targets right away off the hop. But we do appreciate that comment, and I like the bold take there. Keep Calvin Ridley away from FTN content. Listen, man, Ratcliffe has this guy in the mid-20s. A lot of people have him in the mid-20s, to be honest. I think there's a few of us that have him roughly 14 to 17 in that range. High-stakes leagues, he's going as wide receiver 14. He's really jumped up draft boards over the last little bit. I think a lot of people are a little hesitant on Calvin Ridley, but he could be an absolute game changer for you in fantasy. And I have him in a dynasty league, and I've actually been trying to sell him. I don't know. I like him overall, but I've been seeing what I can get maybe with Calvin Ridley. Okay, I'm going to steal one of your guys. So I'm stealing another one of your guys, I guess. We talked about him off the top, Jahan Dotson. So I think he's a sleeper for you. He's one of my guys for me. So we can both kind of touch on him a little bit here. But I know last night he balled out and Terry McLaurin suffered the toe injury. It has nothing to do with last night. I've been writing every Thursday just 3 fantasy targets of my favorite targets of mine, and I'm moving up draft board. So I started in the first couple rounds, and I'm in the middle rounds now, middle towards the late. I'm like 10 to 12 now. But I wrote about Jahan Dotson, a couple weeks ago. Jake Seeley sniped him in front of me when we were drafting. It was just a big snipe job between you, Eisenberg. Everyone was sniping each other. It was a lot of fun. But Jahan Dotson's been a 7th round pick all summer long, and there's a lot of things that I like about. Not going to be anymore. There's no question about that. So 7 touchdowns in 12 games. He was tied among rookie wide receivers in touchdowns. He had 7 red zone targets, which was only 4 behind Terry McLaurin, and he played 5 fewer games than Terry McLaurin. He had a 13.98 average depth of target, ADOT. You can see that. It's a free tool over at ftnfantasy.com, ADOT. I think it's a very telling stat, especially putting together some lineups, DFS, and things like that. But it just goes to show where some of the routes that these guys are running and how they're used. So 13.9 ADOT, was fourth behind Gabe Davis, George Pickens, and Chris Olave, minimum 60 targets. He had 14.9 yards per catch last season, which was good for ninth among wide receivers. So not only was he getting used down the field, he was explosive with the ball in his hands, and he was also getting used inside the end zone. So only 5 targets per game last season, but he racked up 35 over his last 5 games, which was 7 per game. So that's decent, especially for a rookie. And in his final 5 games, he scored 3 touchdowns. He hit the century mark once, and he had top 70 yards twice. And he also started his career very good as well. 4 touchdowns in his first 4 games, 22 targets. He suffered an injury, which kept him sidelined to week 10 and really limited to week 13. So we saw Dotson early on, targets, touchdowns, injury, came back, eased him back in, and then a strong finish towards the end of last season. You know what? Sam Howell looks pretty good as well. So Jahan Dotson, I don't know if this is a bold take. Maybe. I think he may have a better season than Terry McLaurin. I don't know if he's going to have as many targets. I think he could have more yards. I think he could finish with more touchdowns. He had more end zone targets than him. I'm in, and I know you're in as well. So it sounds like the whole fantasy community really likes Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I mean, there's ruining the value, but he's still a player that I believe in and I really like. Also, McLaurin being banged up. They say that he's going to be fine, but like the reality is Jahan Dotson could be, even with a healthy Terry McLaurin, the number 1 receiver on this team. I think Sam Howell is going to be better than everybody thinks. I'm not willing to bet on that, but it's just a gut feeling because of the one game he played last year. The fact that he's on the guy, right? There's no doubting about it. I get Jacoby Brissett has been, a good backup and has come in and played admirably in spots. But Sam Howell is the guy. They want him to be the guy, and I believe they're going to give him every opportunity to be the guy. So love that. Love Dotson as well.
McCormick, our guy in the house, always so nice to us. Always thriving. You're always thriving, McCormick. Miss you, buddy. And the toe injury now on top of all this, right?
Yep.
This was before, but now the toe happened, and he is going to rise up draft boards, right? I mean, there's just something let's regroup in a week and take a look at this. Dotson right now, wide receiver 37 over the last 2 weeks, high stakes leagues, min pick 58. He's going around Mike Evans, JSN, Hollywood Brown, Gabe Davis, Jordan Addison, and then Terry McLaurin is going as wide receiver 25, pick 50 on average. Let's check in a couple weeks and see how this could change. Toe injuries are a definite issue for sure. Rather have the young Packers wide receivers over any Washington wide receivers. We like that take. I don't mind that take. I really like all the Green Bay wide receivers as well. I think that Green Bay is going to surprise some people. I think they could be a playoff squad. I don't know. All right, you're up. What do you got?
All right. And this is no secret if anyone has been following along to anything that I've said, and it's Justin Herbert. And I will leave every draft possible with him. I would be willing to bet that the Los Angeles Chargers have the number 1 offense in yards, total yards, and in touchdowns. And I know that it can be considered bold, but if you look at the skill position players, Justin Herbert was a very good quarterback last year, and he was hobbled for the entire year. He was still very good. This year, 100% healthy. A superior offensive coordinator. Eckler's healthy. They got some other backs that need to step up and do something. I still think that Isaiah Spiller could be a thing. Kelly was okay. I think he's the number 2 there probably. But looking at the wide receiver, like Joshua Palmer could be a high-end number 2 wide receiver on most other offenses in the NFL. The reality is Keenan Allen is maybe and has been probably the best slot receiver in the NFL for going on close to what it seems like a decade. And I get that he's older, but I think early on, a lot of people were saying, injury prone and stuff, but has been pretty decent as far as durability goes over the last few seasons. So I still believe highly in Keenan Allen. I think NBA Rigged asked earlier about where I have Ridley and Allen. When I was drafting, I had Allen above. I've moved Calvin Ridley, I think 2 spots above Keenan Allen now, just because I believe that he has a higher upside than Keenan Allen. And that's because of Mike Williams and the rookie Quentin Johnson, right? The ball is going to be spread around. And even the tight end, who played very, very well last year. Gerald Everett. This offense is going to cook, man. It's going to cook, and it's going to be facilitated by Justin Herbert. I'm going to have him on every one of my teams if I have it my way.
The answer to this question is actually Jalen Hurts. Sorry, it's not Mahomes or Josh Allen. It's Jalen Hurts, the guy who led the NFL in fantasy points per game. No, I get it. You want to take a safer quarterback. I'd probably lean with Josh Allen. I mean, you're not going to go wrong with any one of those guys. Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, but it is Hurts for me because of what he does on the ground. Okay, let's continue here. We're gonna, like always, we go a little long. This one will be quick for me. Javonte Williams. He's been a guy that have been taken in the 9th and 10th round all summer long. Now we're starting to finally see him rise up draft boards. But even still, in a serious XM hosts league over the weekend, I took him in the 7th round. I took him in the 6th in Jake Seeley's flex leagues. So that to me, like, I still think that there's good value for him. And I reference NFFC high stakes leagues. He's going as RB19, RB18. He's got a min pick of 27. So I feel like they're pretty savvy over there. So that makes me feel a little bit better about this pick. Of course, there's risk. He suffered like a significant knee injury. It's like MCL, LCL, ACL, like all these CLs were just exploded in his knee. I mean, he just touched the field for the first time since October in a game setting, and he touched the ball like 4 times in the opening drive. I think he caught 4 passes. He had 3 carries. I guess Samaje Perine was catching some passes as well. But Javonte Williams, now that we're seeing him, like, he wasn't placed on the PUP list. He was cleared for contact right away. He's looking good. Yep. He's playing with the team. Sean Payton offense. And I get it. Samaje Perine's a great pass catching back. He's great in pass protection as well. But these guys can both be productive in fantasy. They can both be decent targets for you. Payton in New Orleans back in the day, Ingram and Kamara were both top 12 running backs. They both kind of fed off of each other. You couldn't tell which guy was going to get the goal line work. Both were catching passes. I think that they're both I think that Javonte Williams is just skyrocketing up draft boards right now. I'm a big, big fan of his. And remember with Russell Wilson last year in just 4 games, he caught 16 passes and had 22 targets. So Javonte Williams, 7 touches for 40 yards in that preseason game, and it was just all in the first half there. Okay, one more from you, and then one more for me, and then we have our guys, and we'll get into sleepers and busts here. So one more for you, right?
Well, my other one would have been Nick Chubb, right? And we've already talked about him. I'll just say quickly, honorable mention for me that I almost put him on this list is Mike Evans, and he just seems to be bulletproof. And I get, like, he played with Tom Brady last year, but he played with subpar quarterback. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield is going to solve the problems there, but when he went over to LA and was thrown in what looked pretty good, I think Baker can take enough risks to make Mike Evans valuable, especially where he's going. Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards in like 10 seasons in a row. So I'm not betting against it again.
6-point passing touchdown. That does change things. I would go with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you can't go wrong. Allen's going to throw for 34, 35 touchdowns again. He's going to run a few in, but Mahomes has like the 50 touchdown passing upside. So I would just go with that. It's crazy to think that Mahomes he may just be scratching his prime. It's just wild to think about.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Okay. The last guy for me was TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson averaged 6 catches per game in 10 games with the Minnesota Vikings. He was used differently. He wasn't used deep down the field like he was in Detroit. It was kind of like a really short ADOT, but targets and volume is really king for me in fantasy, especially at the tight end position. I think he could finish as tight end 2. I have him at 3 behind Mark Andrews, but I think he's a decent pick in the 4th round. If you want to attack tight end early, do it. Or just wait it out. That's kind of my thinking. I know Waller is rising up draft boards, and he had a great camp, great preseason game. But for me, TJ Hawkinson, right away, thrown into the fire, 21% target share in those 10 games. Leapfrog Adam Thielen in terms of targets, end zone targets as well. Justin Jefferson always going to get a ton of volume, a ton of looks. So TJ Hawkinson for me, I think is. I actually feel like he's a really good target, and he's a guy that I think 6 catches per game is a lot. That's 102 catches over the full course of a season. Travis Kelce led the NFL with 108 at the tight end position. So not used the same, not going to have the same type of yardage or touchdowns probably. But if he can get me, I mean, he was already second in catches anyways with like 80 some odd. But if he can flirt with 100, that's pretty good. All you can ask for is a tight end that is targeted a ton in an offense that's going to pass a lot, maybe struggle on the ground, and targeted inside the red zone. There's our guys. And in case you missed and you're just joining us, we do have a look of them. We got to show off Fox getting it done. EY's guys: Justin Herbert, Tyler Lockett, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, Nick Chubb, Christian Watson, Javonte Williams, Jahan Dotson, and TJ Hawkinson. Man, I like a lot of dudes. It was tough to leave some off, but here we are.
Yep.
Okay, yep. EY. Let's kind of wrap it through these. I'll let you take the mic for a little bit. Talk to me about your 5 busts.
All right, 5 busts. And this isn't in any order. This is just kind of like as they came to me. Bijan Robinson. I just look at guys. I get we all want to be excited about him. I get that he was drafted high. I get that he plays the running back position. And we've seen rookie running backs do wonderful things before. But just where he's going is just too much for me for a rookie. If you want to bet on it and you cash, congratulations. I'm just saying where he's going is just too rich for my blood. He hasn't played it down in the NFL. I think Tyler Algier is still going to run the ball a ton. Cordero Patterson is going to run the ball. They don't care about you or your fantasy team or your fantasy projections. They're going to try to win games. And the best way to do that is to spread the ball around and keep everybody healthy. And I just don't think he's going to touch the ball enough to produce. And I don't trust rookies. That's just a rule of thumb for me. If you want to draft him, then go, good. I mean, I hope that he's the player that everyone thinks he's going to be. I think he's going to be a very good player. I just don't think it's going to be this year. Joe Burrow, which makes me sad. He might be my favorite quarterback in the NFL. Injuries that like he has, the ankle injury. Look at I broke my ankle almost a decade ago, and it still hurts, and it still affects me, and I'll just move it the wrong way. Warming up to work out, or in a match, I'll jam it or something, and it'll hurt for weeks. And I don't want that to be the case. I just said he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. My goal in life is to smoke cigars with Joe Burrow at some point. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But I love him. But the reality is I think this year, he's just not going to be the same player, and I'm not willing to bet that he's going to be. Dalvin Cook. I think a lot of people, he's rifling up draft boards because of Breece Hall. Breece Hall has been cleared, right? He's back in practice. I don't think he's running at full speed or whatever, but the reality is Dalvin Cook still hasn't practiced. He had shoulder surgery, and I get that you don't run with your arms or your shoulders, but every time you get hit, that's where you're absorbing the contact, and that scares the crap out of me. So I would avoid him. Christian Kirk, because of Calvin Ridley's emergence. The reality is the reports out of the camp are when there's 2 wide receivers on the field, Christian Kirk isn't on the field. He's the slot guy, and he's not going to produce like he did. And because of the season he had last year, he's going too high for my taste. I think he's a very good player. I think he proved everybody, including me, wrong last year. But the reality is because of the addition of Calvin Ridley, and because of the resurgence of the other weapons in this offense, I just don't believe, and even Zay Jones, right? I just don't believe he's going to play enough snaps to produce where he's being drafted. And that's why I have him on this list. And the number one for me, and I think this would probably be my number one, I don't think I have him on any one team, is Alexander Madison. He's never really done it when he's had to been the guy. And they're saying he's going to be the guy, and that worries me. So that would be my number one.
I think there may be a committee in Minnesota in by week 4 or week 5. I think Ty Chandler's looked pretty good. McBride has looked decent, and he's never been super efficient. I don't think that they're going to have a lot of success running the rock. So I am a little bit worried about Madison. He's
just a guy, right? He's just a guy.
What I will say about Bijan, man, this guy is a freak. He's true bell cow. But I do agree that Algier will be sprinkled in a little bit. I just have a problem. And he's going as RB2. I just have a problem taking him over Eckler, Chubb, and Saquon. No, I have an issue. I would rather take one of those backs or an alpha wide receiver. I think he's going to be fine. But the fantasy community, you're drafting him at his peak. Like everybody is telling me he's going to be arguably the best running back in football. That's it. If he finishes RB 10, 12, kind of a bust, right? For where you took him overall.
That's why I've got him on the list.
Value, but it is one of the best offensive lines in football. Algier had 1,000 yards and 200 carries. He can catch the rock like Algier can, and Arthur Smith is a great play caller. So I get all of it, but is this a touch? I'm with you. It's a touch too early for me. Here are my busts. Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Kenneth Walker, Alexander Mattison with you, and DeAndre Swift. Kenneth Walker, for me, there's a lot of reasons for Kenneth Walker. Like, he was drafted in the second round 2 years ago, and then immediately, what did they do? They drafted another running back in Zach Charbonnet in the second round. There's good things about Walker: 11th in carries, 3rd in red zone touches, 13th in opportunity share. Explosive run rate was 4th. He ranked 1st in percentage of his yards from explosive runs, which is good, but also a little bit concerning. He had 9 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, started 11 games. Like, that's all great. 200 carries on 1,000 yards. Algier did that. That is awesome. But there's zero work in the passing game. He does not run routes. He's not getting any targets. He was 2 for 9 inside the 5. His success rate was extremely low, 41 out of 42 qualified backs with 100 carries. And as I mentioned, they drafted Charbonnet. So Charbonnet is a guy that I think could steal some third down work and potentially steal some goal line work from Kenneth Walker if he continues to struggle in short yardage situations. He's an easy pass for me. I have him in the mid-20s at the running back position. McLaurin, we touched on him earlier. It really doesn't have anything to do with the toe, but now on top of this, and it's just our love for Jahan Dotson. Deebo Samuel, 4 years in the NFL. 10 fantasy points per game, 10 fantasy points per game, 18 fantasy points per game last year, 10 fantasy points per game. The outlier was 2 years ago, was the year before they had Christian McCaffrey. When they brought in CMC and they traded for CMC, what happened? The red zone rushing attempts went down. He's a wide receiver. He shouldn't be used as a running back. He's great. Give him the ball in the red zone, some end arounds, some bubble screens. Yeah, he's a fantastic real-life player, but I think it's easy to go back and look at the outlier season, the red zone rushing attempts, the rushing touchdowns. Those things will scale back. As for DeAndre Swift, I mean, it looks great in Philadelphia. He's a Philly boy. He's on a 1-year contract behind arguably the best offensive line in football, the best rushing team in the NFL over the past couple of years, but this is going to be a full-on committee. Swift is not going to get goal line work. Jalen Hurts led all quarterbacks in goal line carries. You have Penny for short yardage situations. Swift has never shown us that he can handle full workload. Never had a full season in the NFL. You got Kenneth Gainwell in the squad, Boston Scott, and Hurts hasn't shown me that. I mean, they haven't had the type of guy that's Swift. They can move him around all over the field, but Hurts isn't a guy that's going to check it down when on 3rd and 3rd. He's going to tuck and run it himself or stretch it down the field. So I am out on DeAndre Swift. We'll continue here. We got a few more minutes. We'll continue here. We got our sleepers. So I'll throw to you again. Give us your 5 sleepers. I'll do 5, and then we'll wrap up. We'll try to get to some questions that people have asked here on the show, but we'll throw to you for the sleepers.
Sleepers, like we said at the start of the show, it's undervalued from where they're being drafted. I think probably the number one right now, I don't think that will be the case in 4 or 5 days, but where he's being drafted in most leagues right now, Jahan Dotson. I know we've talked about him a ton, but I can't stress it enough. If you're drafting today or tomorrow, take him where he is, because you're not going to get that kind of value going forward because of his what he did in the preseason game. Also, the McLaurin injury is going to rocket Dotson up draft list. Davis from Buffalo. I just look at this is a great offense. This is a great quarterback. Stephon Diggs, there's all this crazy stuff coming out that he wants out of Buffalo and blah, blah, blah. I mean, if Stephon Diggs leaves, then Davis to the moon. That's what I believe. But I think, if Diggs stays and he plays, he's going to be covered. The number one quarterback on the league. They're going to, bracket him, double Diggs, which leaves the softer coverage for Gabriel Davis. And I think that he's going to have a big year. And I think the number one reason for having him on this sleepers or undervalued list is that because of where he's going. Like, think about where he was going last year, and we were all wrong. But that was mostly due to,
but not by much.
Injury.
He's still finished like as a wide receiver 3. Yeah,
right.
He still finished a wide receiver 3. Now nobody wants him as a wide receiver 3. He's going like as a wide receiver 5. It's like the stock market. It's a buy low window now for Gabe Davis.
And that's a great way to look at it. The ebbs and flows. You want to get these players on your team when there's an ebb, and right now there's an ebb in his value. So take him. Kamara, look, I get, he may not be everyone's favorite person. He's going to miss some games, but the reality is I believe this backfield belongs to him. I think when healthy, is still one of the best running backs in the league. He can do everything. Jamal Williams, I think, will vulture touchdowns. But think about when Ingram was there. He was vulturing touchdowns too. It didn't matter. Kamara's going to catch a ton of balls. Derek Carr loves to check down to his running backs. Look what he did with Josh Jacobs last season. And looking at this, if you can supplement running back and get a win or two, and then go into week 3 and maybe you're 1-2, or best case 2-1, you're giving yourself a very good chance to make the playoffs. And then you have a fully rested and healthy Kamara for when the games mean more later in the year. So I love him as a value. Michael Pittman, I believe Anthony Richardson is going to blow people away. That's what I think. And he's been rocketing up my draft board. The reality is, in fantasy, Justin Fields threw the football last season like he was throwing a shot put, and was still one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy in the second half of the season. Anthony Richardson is going to start. Anthony Richardson is going to run. And I'm willing to bet almost anything. Anthony Richardson is a better runner than Justin Fields. And I think, not undoubtedly, but I have a sneaky suspicion that he's a better thrower than Justin Fields was in his first year. And I think that the offense is just going to flow through this guy big time. I get that he's a rookie quarterback, and that's terrifying, but where he's going, I think there's just the unbelievable upside. And my number 5, but I think this would probably be my number 1. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to be very, very good this year. I think that offense is going to run a ton of plays. I don't think they're going to run as often, but I think the fact that they're going to spread the field with 3 wide receivers and Mark Andrews on the field, you're not going to be able to load up a box, and J.K. Dobbins is going to be running roughshod through Swiss cheeses of defense.
Man, I really like J.K. Dobbins. I want to see him on the field, though. I really do want to see him on the field. He's been a guy that's been super efficient on minimal touches. There's no question about that. And, the way that he finished his rookie campaign, I think he had like 8 touchdowns in his final 8 games. He was good in the playoffs as well. And even last year, not being 100%, he again had really good games on like 12 to 15 touches. Todd Monken coming in, they ran 11 personnel fewer than anybody. Now you got to worry about Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., the mismatch of Andrews, Bateman stretching the field. You got to worry about the dual threat ability of Lamar Jackson. It's going to be a really tough offense to defend. You're not going to see a lot of stack boxes. So J.K. Dobbins, I'm a little sour on him at the moment, but I see the upside, I see the ceiling, and he's fallen down draft boards, and he's becoming like an interesting little pick because of that, falling outside top 20, top 24 at the running back position. I think there's a real high ceiling there. I like all those guys. I like them a lot. Here are my sleepers. Where are they at? Now, it was really tough because I like a lot of players, and I'll just kind of rapid fire through some deep sleepers towards the end. These are the guys. And now the couple of these running backs early, you may not view them as sleepers, but I think Rachaad White is the best running back going outside the top 25 in terms of a back that could be a bell cow running back. I mentioned Dave Cannell's now the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. They ran a lot of gap schemes last year in Tampa Bay. They're going to run a lot of zone schemes, get some offensive line moving, create some open avenues for Rachaad White. He caught 50 passes last year as a rookie running back. Leonard Fournette was inside the top 5 in targets and catches at the running back position. He is gone. There's really not a lot of competition. I don't believe in Chase Edmonds at all, not one bit. So for Rachaad White, the offense is not going to be as great, and they had issues running the ball, but I think the change at the offensive coordinator, plus, I get it. Tom Brady's not there to dump off. I understand all those things that people are going to say about Rachaad White. Not super efficient, didn't check a lot of boxes in terms of yards after contact. Like, he just wasn't a really good running back. But Sean Tucker, he probably would have got drafted if he didn't have the injury. And I think he's a good late dart throw too. But this is Rachaad White's backfield. This guy isn't even touching the field here in preseason. He's going to be a back that I think could finish top 10 in overall touches. And as I mentioned, bell cow there, the ability for him is certainly possible. Isaiah Pacheco, not on, that's a TB, that should be RB, all good. Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, I try to leave my draft with one of those two guys. Eric on Kansas City, I know it's a pass-happy offense with the Chiefs, and I know they're going to throw the football quite a bit, but Pacheco was learning the playbook last year, and it took him some time to really, earn the trust of Andy Reid or earn the trust of Patrick Mahomes. In the first 10 games, he really hardly touched the field. But from week 10 to week 18, he averaged 14 carries, 70 rushing yards, had 100 fantasy points. It was RB 17.5 point setting. He came away with 10 catches in his last 7 games. Doesn't seem like a lot, but he only had 3 catches in his first 10 games. He finished with 4 rushing touchdowns in his last 7 games. He was great in the Super Bowl, 15 for 76 and a touchdown. In 3 playoff games, he had just under 200 rushing yards on 37 carries. He caught 6 of his 7 targets for 67 yards. He was a player in the receiving game. He's on the field. He's cleared for contact at the moment. He's taking hits. And also he's running routes in practice with Patrick Mahomes. And we know that Andy Reid, what he can do with his backs. That's why everybody was freaking out about CEH for years. CEH is an afterthought. Forget about CEH. He's done on the squad. He's just like, he's not a thing. But you can go look at Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, Jamal Williams, or Jamal Charles, excuse me. Kareem Hunt. I know he's not that type of running back, but if you can add maybe 22 catches to his game, I think he is in for, we have him projected for basically what he did last year. And you got to remember, he, as a 7th round rookie running back, learning the playbook behind like the depth chart, then overtook everything, played on the biggest stage under the brightest lights. And now year 2, knowing the playbook more, Reed, Mahomes, everybody, best offense in football, arguably. So I'm in on those 2 backs, and I know they may not be viewed as sleepers, but we said on the top of the show, I think they can return value. Tank Bigsby, history, what we know about Doug Peterson is that he likes to use multiple running backs, and Travis Etienne, I kind of view him like a Dobbins, like an Eckler, doesn't need a lot of touches to rack up 100 total yards, can catch the ball, but hurt in year 1. Hurt last year when he was getting a full workload. New regime didn't draft him overall. Now new coaching regime drafted Tank Bigsby. We saw JaMychal Hasty steal some first and second down looks. We saw him steal some red zone looks. We saw Trevor Lawrence call his own number inside the red zone more in year 2 than he did in year 1. So Bigsby, I think, will play a role. I don't think he's going to overtake, but he may get some first and second down looks. He may get some goal line works. He's catching the ball to the backfield. Zay Flowers and Nico Collins. Nico Collins had like 36 targets in his last 4 games without Brandon Cooks, 30-year wide receiver. I think he can break out. He's got a big body. He could be a red zone target. Houston's going to be playing from behind quite a bit. I also like John Mechie and Tank Dell as interesting flyers late, but Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, these guys should get a lot of targets this year. And I'm just in on Zay Flowers, but, EY, I may have to pump the brakes a bit because this guy is rising up draft boards considerably. About 3 weeks ago when we looked at the Ravens, it was Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, and Bateman all together. You basically had to pick one of them. Bateman, when he's on the field, he's great, stretching the field, but 2 years, injuries in both years. Odell Beckham Jr., haven't seen him in a couple years. He was great with the Rams, especially in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Fantastic. Haven't seen him in quite some time. A lot older now. Yep. Zay Flowers is going to see a ton of one-on-one. I think he's a terrific route runner. He's got a lot of speed. I think he's sneaky. And as you said about this Ravens offense, I think it's going to be a little bit more pass-happy than we're used to seeing. It was tough for me to leave off like Jaden Reed, I like. Jonathan Mingo, I like. John Mechie, I love Rashawn Johnson. I think he's a good target. Be patient with him. I think he could be a league winner like Cam Akers and Javonte Williams were in their rookie seasons. I love Nakua. I love him he's gonna have a role with the Rams, right? Cooper Kupp is not 100% at the moment. He's been hurt a couple times now over the past couple seasons. Somebody has to step up. Last year when he went down, who stepped up? Nobody. Tutu Atwell? No. Van Jefferson? No. Skronik, no. Higbee had 70 catches. Like, there's going to be a role here for Puka Nakua, and it's a fun name to say. All right, we did it. There's a lot of things maybe we couldn't get to. Some questions. It's probably McCarthy, which is not great. Rashawn Johnson, Uncle Ted likes himself some Rashawn Johnson. I'm with you, dude. I don't know if he's a clear path to RB1, but there you go. The FTN Football Almanac. Look at that thing. Can we show it again with a side view? Holy man, that is a thick book. I love it. The thing with Rashawn Johnson, I mean, you got Fields running the ball. You got Herbert. You got Foreman, who could be a goal line back there. There's a lot going on, but I think he could be a league winner there. JK, I think he is practicing. He's activated. Flowers looks legit. Dotson going in the 6th round. Stepmom loves him. Yeah, we all love Dotson. So maybe he's not classified as a sleeper, but he's a breakout. He's a must-have. He's the guy. I saw your question earlier. Who could be last year's Christian Kirk? That surprises people. I think maybe it's not him because he's not surprising people, but he's a guy that I think could be a rock solid wide receiver 3 and maybe a wide receiver 2. James Cook sleeper, like it. He's a guy rising up draft boards. We like him overall as a unit here on the show. Another guy, you give him 12 to 15 touches in a high-powered offense, may get some goal line carries taken away from Harrison and Hurts or Allen rather, but James Cook is a good target as well. I would go Tank over Charbonnet. And I think we got everything here. Pacheco going in the 6th round. Maybe again, guys, the sleeper thing, it doesn't necessarily mean second last pick. It means return value. I think Pacheco could finish as a top 20 back. He's going as RB 30. So I think he could be an RB 2, not a flex. Same thing with Javonte Williams, Rashad White. These guys are going in the 30s. I think they'll be top 20 running backs. That's why we're calling them sleepers, but I see where you're at. We do got to get out of here. We do got to get out. We've gone long as always. George is hanging out. Any final words? Just that book.
No, I mean, the Almanac. Look at Bill Simmons from The Ringer said it the best. A book that any self-respecting NFL fan needs to purchase. It's not that expensive. I mean, you should have purchased it like I should have purchased it a long time ago so you could get through it all. But I can tell you this is you want to nerd out about football, man. That's it. That's the ticket. It's amazing.
It is amazing. All right. We do appreciate you guys. No hard feelings there towards the end about the sleeper stuff. But on Thursday, we'll dive into deeper sleepers for you guys. But we got to get out of here. Thanks, guys, for taking the time to hang out. We'll see you on Thursday. Get involved. We'll do a set bet spike league. Myself, Eric Young, George, Abby. We'll have a league and we'll play it out. We'll have a lot of fun. Join us Thursday, 10:30 Eastern here on our FTN Network YouTube page. Cheers.